Real quick, as we get started here this hour, I do want to make mention before I forget my friends at the Guardian ad litem, who we've done a great job over the years. And by we, I mean my listeners and you guys, all of us coming together. And I'm serious about that to help out the folks at the Guardian ad litem, who of course, you're talking about volunteers and mentors and their staff getting together, trying to help out kids who really need representation and need role models. In particular, by the way, the reason I'm mentioning it up right now is they need some male role models. They need more male volunteers. They have an awful lot of female volunteers. And they've been reaching out for the young men that are in this program, some of the young men that could use representation and use help and use guidance in their life from a male role model. They're trying to recruit more. I'm just going to put it bluntly. This Thursday, they've asked that I go to an event that is going to be at Momo's Pizza. If you guys are in town, I'd love it if you came by. If you're even interested, here's the deal.
Is it Northside Momo's?
Yes, Northside Momo's. My apologies. That's right. Market Street Momo's. Market Street, 1410 Market Street. In fact, for those that don't know, on the north side. It's from 5:30 to 7:30. It's basically just a social. You just come in there and find out what they're about. I'm going to be there. I think we'll be talk some sports. I don't know what they want me to do, but I'm willing to answer any questions that anybody has. And basically, I'm just excited about the statewide Guardian ad litem offices, what they do, and how you can get involved to make a huge difference in a child's life. And they need more male role models. Bluntly, they need more male role models and volunteers. The event's this Thursday, 5:30, Momo's, Market Street location, north side. I'll be there. They'll be there instructing on how it is you can help. So if you've ever been interested, if you've ever even just thought, well, I got free time. My kids are off in college now. And, you know, I got afternoons where I could help out, or I'm retired and I could help out. I'm looking for some direction or purpose to maybe lend a hand. This might be for you. Maybe not, but one way or the other, you'll find out. And you can learn an awful lot about what would be asked of you. You could say, oh, it's too much. I can't do it. Or you could say, oh, wow, that's it. That's all you need. You need once a month for me to, mentor a kid, or twice a month, or something like taking to a baseball game. Sure, I can do that. Like things of that ilk. So speaking of which, I almost called you Bryce, Tom. Speaking of which, baseball is nearly upon us, buddy. Woo. Every day we just say it aloud as if to speed up the time. I mean, all of the preseason rankings and possibilities for the incoming players and the returning players. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I put the APB out for Link Jarrett and Micah Posey to come on the show. That's a fun email to do. It's a new tradition. Sometimes we talk about the traditions that we have long-standing for years. Whether it's sometimes your speaking engagements, or if we go through the old magazines, those were old ones. The new one I'm finding is, hey, Florida State, can we talk to the head baseball coach about this outstanding program that we can't wait to watch this season? Can we talk to the pitching coach and assistant coach about what this staff is going to look like beyond the preseason pitcher of the year from Perfect Game and Jamie Arnold, a surefire as long as he stays healthy, first-round pick in this year's MLB draft? Can we talk to those guys? Can we line that up for early February? I liked sending that email yesterday. Sometimes we send emails that we don't like sending at all. That was a fun one. And, yeah, it's a month away now. You're a month away from first pitch.
Yeah, I mean, look, you come off the run into the College World Series a year ago, and not just a run into the College World Series. I felt like, for whatever reason, maybe because we're all cynical and jaded from the years of having great teams that achieved a lot but came up just short of the national championship that's been so elusive. Maybe we got bored with the success or used to it. Some people call that spoiled, whatever it might be. But I felt like last year's team, which showed signs pretty early of being very, very good. If you recall, I made a little wager on them to make the College World Series, which paid off. And I did that like third week of the season. I was like, they got a little something to them. There's a lot of power to all fields, and that lineup keeps getting longer. This is problematic. And at the time, we couldn't have known about some of the injuries that would end up happening to the pitching staff. Leiter is who I'm speaking of. By the way, I still can't. This is another reason we need to have the conversation with the coaches. What are they getting from Leiter? Well, is he or is he not going to pitch for them at any point this year? What I don't know what I believe just yet. It's even written weirdly when you read the preseason kind of reviews of why Florida State's ranked where they are. I mean, they don't exactly go all in on what they think Leiter's going to do for this team in the rotation.
No, it would be nice to see him pitch because he wasn't very consistent last year. In fact, he ended the year with a thud. So maybe that doesn't matter to Major League scouts.
Well, they look at stuff.
I would think it would, though, to be able to show a little bit more metal. There's tons of potential there. And you saw early in the season, obviously in February, you're going, oh, my God, look at what this kid can be. But, in the middle of innings when things go bad, I'd like to see a little bit more of a response.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that he can show this year if he's available. If Florida State's going to put out a social media graphic, and for those of you that don't follow social media, God love you because you're in a better mental place than most of us. But they did include Leiter in a graphic that they put out on Florida State Baseball's Twitter account, X account, last week. I don't think you're going to be taking the time to cartoonize somebody and put them on here are the big performers that are going to help us this year, unless you fully expect that guy to be a part of the plan. But we'll see what they say on the record, though, when it's time.
It's difficult for coaches in the college game, especially when it comes to pitchers and their health and what they can and cannot provide for a program. I think it's hard because you're involved in a little bit of a dance between a player and his reps, sometimes a player and his parents, both usually. Not everybody is all that communicative, and I get it. I completely get if it's your son that's the prospect to make millions of dollars. You are balancing between the potential of that and what he needs to provide for a team here and now at the college level. It's very difficult. We as fans can certainly resent the idea of a player being pretty healthy and not going out there, where you kind of, well, really, right. Everybody's got bumps and bruises this time of year. Are you having surgery or are you just a little sore? Yeah, but when it comes to pitching, that is very delicate. That is a very different situation than football. I have a thigh contusion in football. Yeah, it's a physical sport. Everybody's got a thigh contusion. Everybody's sore. Everybody's right forearm is hurting because you tackle people. It's all there, right? Baseball is a little bit more delicate where, yeah, the difference between having Tommy John surgery or not is millions of dollars at stake. You get it a little bit. You get it a little bit there with that.
Yeah, no, look, I'm usually the guy who advocates for example, going back into the portal, double dipping and triple dipping until the rules change. If you're really that good, cultivate multiple offers for yourself because you never know if it's going to work out of the NFL. There are plenty of dudes that look like surefire Hall of Fame, pros, and they're out of the league in 2 or 3 years. So in football, I say go maximize your money. And I would be crazy if I wasn't consistent with that when it came to baseball. The whole thing is, to me, if you're not intending to play, then don't be a part of the program. You can go. There are plenty of places in the state of Florida with a pitching mound and excellent, labs that you can work with. I'm hoping he's a part of the process here. And here's the thing. Again, last year, he was off to a wonderful start, but then it kind of crashed before he was unavailable for the rest of the season. Carson Dorsey had a better ERA. At 4.60, he had a better ERA than Leiter did last year. Oxford did. Connor Holtz did. He had a 4.63 at the time that he was unavailable. Much different than Jamie Arnold's 2.98, right? And I get that ERAs they're higher in college because of the nature of the sport, especially now, how good these hitters are and the bats being what they are. It feels like it's not quite the dead bat era when they changed it, but it's not quite the 90s either. It's somewhere in between, but these bats are live. So anything that's 350 or below is very, very, very good. But it's a 4.63 ERA. When he comes back, if he does, he has to prove that he's our best pitcher because originally he was the Friday night guy. Right now, that's Jamie Arnold's job, and ain't nobody taking it away from him.
Well, yeah, and I don't need him to prove that he's better than Jamie Arnold because he's not. I need him to just be good. Just be whatever you're going to be as the 2. Hell, just be a good 3. Just right. Just matter. Be out there. Give us innings. Give us a chance to win series because you're part of the solution. And again, sounds like I'm chastising there was frustration with his situation a year ago. You could never get a good sense of what was what. Are you hurt, and you have to miss these games because you have an injury? Is this you're choosing not to play, or your people have decided that you shouldn't play? Which, again, I have empathy for the kid in that situation, or the young man. He's not a kid, but I have empathy for the young men in that situation. You're going to do what your advisors tell you. You're going to do what your family tells you in a situation in which millions of dollars are at stake. And your future is directly tied to professional baseball, and they're going to tell you certain things about what you should and shouldn't do while playing college baseball. I got that. So it's tough because you felt like, and this may be completely unfair, and I get it. If you're one of those representatives listening to me right now, you're going, no, man, you don't know the situation. You're all wrong there. I'm telling you what it looked like from the outside. This is what it looked like from the outside. It looked like a kid who probably could have given it a go, probably could have played with not all that much risk, but was told not to. The frustration is in the fact that there was nothing definitive. So, to me, if you tell a coaching staff he is shutting it down, he is not coming back, there will not be another inning pitched by him this year, we're dealing with, and this is a hypothetical, we're dealing with some shoulder issues that we are not willing to risk right now. Prescribed rest is necessary, and then we're going to reevaluate. That rest is going to extend through the rest of your season. Sorry, sucks, but we're not putting this kid's future on the line for college baseball right now. We're just not going to do it because he's got pro baseball to worry about. All right, fine. At that point, you're not having conversations with Mike Posey and the head coach, Link Jarrett, about day-to-day, week-to-week, is he coming back? That's where the frustration built up because I don't think they knew.
Well, this is, yes, clearing my throat there. It's frustrating, and it lends itself to rampant speculation when you don't offer a definitive. And nobody's a winner in this situation.
No, it hurts the kid too. It hurts him terribly because he's made to look soft.
Correct. Like, this is so you always relate it back to a team of your own. The Mets had a situation like this last year with Senga when he got hurt, the ace, and he was in the running for rookie of the year prior. He said, and his camp said, that he is not returning until he is satisfied that he is more than 100%, meaning that it's at 100%, but for a sustained period of time, that there's no issue coming. That is a frustrating statement to hear.
Yes, it's tone deaf too.
It is tone deaf, but at least it's transparent. Like, as a fan, I'm going, really? We're in a pennant race, and I refuse to play unless I'm 100%, is basically what they're saying. Okay, I got you. 90% of you is better than our 5. I mean, it's the saying. But at least it was transparent, and so the expectations were known. As a fan, media members don't ask the question because they know, look, he'll tell us when he's ready, is basically what the message was. He'll tell us when he's ready. It would be better for all parties involved if their camp gave Link the go-ahead to say, he'll tell us when he's ready. Because it feels like they don't want that spotlight on them, and yet they want their own time. And that's where the frustration comes in, because are you a part of the program or not is what people are going to ask. And then number 2, who's calling the shots? It would be so much easier, I would think, if you're the coach or the pitching coach is like, well, look, he's got aspirations, and so he'll let us know when he's ready. But right now we're powering through with a staff that we believe in. And so it's almost like you compartmentalize it. It's a separate issue. We'd love to get him back. He'll let us know if he's available. Then people kind of get the understanding, but it's just been this in-between place where, I mean, even on the chat during a football segment, hey, is Cam going to pitch? We get that on Warchant all the time.
Well, we get it on Warchant. I get it in emails. People, when you see them out and about, they want to know. Well, and again, you're talking about being in limbo. Nobody likes being in limbo. The in-between of limbo is a nightmare. It just weighs on you because there's hope. involved when you're in limbo. There's this thought of it's not definitively true or not true that he's going to pitch. So I don't know. I'm left wondering, and the wondering allows you to kind of go down a path in your mind. Well, if we get him back in 3 weeks, that's the series against Florida. If we get him back, you start doing that. You project out.
Well, yeah. So last year, Link is asked about it after every weekend series. Hey, next weekend, do you think that, and he goes, well, I know he's a big competitor and he wants to pitch. And
he's trying to protect the kid, but
he's left twisting in the wind. It's not Link's fault in that situation, clearly, because he would tell you if there was a medical reason, he would say, guys, stop asking. When I know something, I'll let you know. He doesn't say that. Last year, he's a hell of a competitor. He came up to me and said, Coach, I'm going to be ready. Well, this is just quit dangling the carrot. Just give us a little bit of something. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, we learn. But in the interim, Florida State put him on a graphic, which tells me that they are assuming that he is going to be available at some point this year.
Yeah, we get into some pretty interesting gray area here that I think is going to be less gray as we move forward. Again, players are now being paid to play their sports. Players are now paid precisely because they play that sport and that they're asked to do certain things. And you either can or you cannot, and that will no longer really be in the gray area. You're going to get your money or you're not. You play and you get paid, or you don't play and you don't get paid. That's kind of like where I think this is eventually going to go. In fact, that allows me to segue into something here, which is NIL related, that I think is absolutely interesting, and it's about pay for play. And I'm waiting to hear this come out from the lips of more coaches. Maybe that scenario would have been one, but more coaches moving forward are going to sound like this. And it's like a pro coach sounds, or a pro GM sounds, or the way announcers talk about professional athletes, in which there's very little grace given to somebody who's opting out when they're paid handsomely. We know that you beat around the bush over the years when it's a college kid. When a college kid misses time, it's delicate. You're like, well, he's an amateur. But when professional athletes don't play and they're paid millions to do so, that does not go over well. This is one of the problems the NBA has had in the last couple of years. When you're playing that schedule and then you shell out your hard-earned money as a fan to go see a player like Kawhi Leonard, and he's just not playing, and you can't get a definitive answer as to why, other than load management, which is a my ass excuse. Nobody wants to hear that. That gets interesting. It gets ugly. It's a very different relationship that fans have with professional athletes than college athletes, but that's about to change entirely.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I know it's a different talking point, but as it relates to the situation, there's a part of me that just wants to say with the Cam Leiter situation, first of all, he wasn't that great towards the end of his last season anyway, so you got to prove it. And either you're a part of the program or you're not, So just be a part of it or leave. There's a part of me that feels like that, but I do need to stop myself, because what's different in this situation is, to your point, you have advisors. There is a level above. And I don't know what the NIL situation is for this particular prospect.
Yeah.
So you do have to pause, because I do want to leap through the screen and just yell it, but you do have to show a measure of maturity in this situation, because the kid is also getting advice, and there's another level that he's trying to get to. And so sometimes it's out of his, as much as you want to say it's firmly in his control, he could tell his advisors to go pound sand. It's not that simple. It's just not.
No, but I will tell you what it is I'm referring to here in just a moment when we come back, because now I think this is the precursor, or the jumping off point, for what's going to be talked about in the way and the manner that it's going to be talked about moving forward with these kids getting paid. And I'll tell you, the coach who did it said it right after the game. Jeff Cameron Show /Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Don't know how many of you have seen this, but following up the segment we just did about the way players are in college are going to be spoken about is now going to mirror that of professional sports. And for the longest time, I can tell you, as somebody who's done this job for 27 years, the issues, or the people who have had issues with me talking about a player So let's say there's a college player who plays poorly and I rip them for playing poorly, or somebody who's consistently coming up short and it's one of our Florida State teams, and I point out that we need to find somebody else at their position because they're not doing a good enough job, or I've even done worse and said they flat out suck, okay, whatever it might be, right? I always looked at it as this isn't high school, it's big-time college athletics. I think they can handle it. They're over the age of 18. It's not a 16-year-old kid. It's an 18, 19, 20-year-old, right? They'd be old enough to be in the military. I never felt bad because I view them as grown-ups, young men and women, but still in the early stages of their grown-up life. People took issue with that. There would be times that people would email me and or call or whatever and say, hey, man, you talk about this guy like he's a pro athlete. He's in college. He's an amateur. Well, we can debate because we know players have been being paid for a long time. But anyhow, now they're officially being paid. And any sort of limbo that you may have found yourself in as a fan, as a dad or a mom or a big brother or whatever, right, where you would have said, I don't like to criticize collegiate athletes the way that Jeff does or the way that some people do in this fan base, right? That's gone, man. That's gone. When dudes are getting paid millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a job, that's what they're doing. Come on, man. Nobody thinks that Carson Beck went to Miami so he can get an advanced degree in psychology. We know exactly why Carson Beck went to Miami. It's for the $3 million they just gave him to play quarterback. Period. And that's what's going on now. We're removing the amateurism nonsense, and we're getting to the nuts and bolts of it all. So I give you this next comment last night from Rick Barnes, the head coach at Tennessee. Their leading scorer, Chaz Lanier, got yanked out of a game 11 seconds into the second half. You know why? Well, this was actually not last night. Sorry, I meant to say Saturday. So he got yanked out of the game against Texas on Saturday. Benched him for peeling off of a screen and throwing an errant pass. Or at least that's the way it looked. He comes off the screen. He throws the ball away. Barnes is furious. Calls time during the break, pulls him. Okay, it's the first thing he can do, right? So after the game, Rick Barnes was asked about that because, again, Chaz Lanier is their leading scorer. Is a high-profile player. You don't usually see the head coach react that way to a star player's errant pass. Happens, basketball. Sometimes things, turnovers happen. So Barnes hesitated and then said, listen, me pulling him out of the game had nothing to do, and I'm quoting it, had nothing to do with the turnover. It had everything to do with him declining to take the shot. And then he said, which he's paid to do. He took it another step forward. I designed the play for him to take the shot. I took him out the first play of the second half because he didn't take the shot. That play was specifically designed for him to shoot the ball. I told him, quote, if you're not going to do what you are getting paid to do here, then you're going to sit over here on the bench because you're getting paid to take that shot when I tell you to take it. That is awesome.
Do you think he's getting paid?
Well, you see the point that Rick Barnes is making? I mean, there it is.
Yep.
Obviously purposeful in his words chosen there repeatedly to announce you're getting paid to do what I tell you to do. And man, it's refreshing because we can stop all this dancing around nonsense. You don't like it? You're going to feel uncomfortable when they boo a kid coming off the field? Guess what, man? That's inherent to the $7 or $6 or $5 million he's making as your starting quarterback. Yeah. Don't go out there and go 12 for 37 with 2 picks, making $4 million a year. You can suck it. And it's going to be a rain of boos. Now, you can say, I don't like the era. I don't like what we've become. I don't like the direction of the sport. I think it's unfair. These kids are so much, all of that. That's where it's going, and that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, there's good and bad from it. Jared Verse is a good story from this era. You want to say the transfer portal and NIL ruined sports. Well, the transfer portal brought Jared Verse here. NIL kept him here for an extra year. He didn't come back just because he
the goodwill. Yeah.
I mean, like, that's part of it. His father did want him to continue his education, but I mean, come on now. He didn't come back for no money and just a scally. So I always felt there are some kids who would have been scholarship athletes wherever they went. In the way that the NCAA would present it to you. Myron Rolle being the biggest example.
Right. Student athletes, yes.
But there are many who, even in my era, which was long before NIL, that was $100, $1,000 handshake era 20 years ago. Yours, maybe they were without inflation, $200 handshakes. I'm not sure. That they got the scally not because their SAT score or their GPA. It's never been that way. There's always been a little relaxing of the admissions strings.
Well, it's quite literally called a sliding scale.
Right. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I was always fine with, because that's true of the general pop as well in a university, right? If you're providing something for them,
sure.
That kind of a thing.
If you can play the cello, there's a chance that, if you're a virtuoso, they're going to want to put you on their brochures.
It's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a win-win. But it's a win-win, and there's a compensation part of that. There always has been. There always has been a trade-off there. There are some in the course of 85 scholarships, I'm sure there's more than just one singular person who would be at Florida State anyway.
Oh, of course.
But it ain't 85 and it ain't 40. There's always been a trade-off there before there was NIL. And now, so I was always a little bit more comfortable. I know you were certainly plenty comfortable with ripping people, but
yes,
now we have crossed the threshold. You are trading the innocence of student athlete for the professionalism of the paycheck that you're receiving. And here come the consequences with it, one way or the other. So if you're awful, man, there ain't no holding back for anybody.
Well, the sham of amateurism has been in place for a very long time. That was always my argument as well. It's like, who are we kidding? But anyhow,
and the thing I would say, I hope that they clean up the issues, and there are myriad issues with the sport right now. But because there is no inducement, because you cannot have incentive-laden contracts and you have guaranteed money as though you're a Major League Baseball professional, once you sign the contract, it is 100% coming to you. I have less tolerance. I might have more tolerance when they fix that loophole, because if you don't try, like Florida State had several players not try last year, and you're getting a guaranteed contract, which has nothing to do with performance because they have to hide behind this thing, man, that makes me even more mad when you don't care, because that money's coming to you whether you try or you don't. That's entitlement defined.
And it can't happen, by the way. That is not a properly functioning system in which players are paid to not work. This is again a problem that they're having with fans and their relationship to the NBA right now. A lot of fans, even diehard fans, and I think anybody reasonable would admit this is a problem. Now, it's less of a problem since they've put in some rules in place, and the commissioner is very good in the NBA, and he has figured out, like, okay, well, we can tie all of these monetary incentives to these awards with games played. We can say you're not eligible to be an all-NBA player if you play fewer than 65 games. You're not eligible to be the defensive player of the year or a leader in any category if you don't play a certain number of games. That was a smart remedy, because what was happening is guys were hiding behind load management and saying that it was the science, that it was the medical science that they're adhering to, that I'll be the better player for you later in the year because I'm missing these 3 games next week and I'm just resting my legs so that on the back end, you get the player you're paying for. It was all nonsense, by the way. There's no credible science that shows that to be the case. There's nobody that is – the amount of injuries haven't been reduced, et cetera. So you were in essence paying a guy who could randomly tell you on a Tuesday, I'm not playing. Well, good luck to the dude that spent $700 for he and his son to come to the game that night and not see Jimmy Butler play and not see, name your whatever star player you want to name, right? Just because they felt like taking the day off.
Well, and look, there's a fine line that people were always willing to understand the risk of a scratch because you need
injuries happen, sure.
Or, if it's an 80-game season, you take 2 or 3 off. I mean, that's going to happen.
No big deal.
And it was never a discussion. Same thing with major leagues. You know, if you've got a day game after a night game, I'm not talking about a catcher. I'm talking about a position player, and you're in July. And
he's 34 years old.
Right. You know, there's a chance that your favorite infielder is not going to be playing that day. Like that would suck, but it's 162 and you get it. But when you're talking about 15% of the season, 20% of the season that you're not playing, like, could you imagine load management in Major League Baseball where a guy is managing his workload to play 125 games? Because that's kind of what it was akin to when you're getting down to some of these numbers where these guys were sitting. Like,
you can't have
15% of the season.
Well, you can never have it said about your league that playing is optional. I just want to point that out. It can never be said about your league that, oh, that's the league where playing is optional. No, man, that's not how we do this. You're going to play. You're paid a gazillion dollars to play, and you're going to play.
Unless you want to sign recurring one-game contracts. I mean, more power to you if you do. You know, because that's what they do in golf. It's an individual sport. If you don't play, well, the purse is not accessible to you. You know, Tiger doesn't get a cut of the John Deere if he doesn't play in the John Deere. Like, that would be absurd. So but he was cool with playing 10 tournaments a year before this latest foray of surgeries. He was all right with a 15 tournament schedule because he didn't need it. I don't need it. I'm not going to play. If you want to do that at the NBA level or the college level, just sign recurring one-game deals. And then, you know what? If you want to take 10 games off, well, I'm not paying you for those 10 games, so all's forgiven.
It'd be hilarious. Can you imagine? I don't know if he is or is not playing this week. I haven't looked. I got to make my bets today for the field. But the Amex is this week, and we all love the Amex. Anyhow, the Amex is this week, and I was just thinking, like, Daniel Berger going, guys, I've decided I've played the first 2 events of the year, and I just need a little break. You know, I really had to go like hell at the end of last year. Could you just cut a check to me for $50,000 this week from the Amex? I did, you know, just I'm not playing, but you know, I could use the money.
Yeah, I mean, I could FaceTime somebody on Pro-Am day. You know, 10, 15 minutes. Like, I mean, I could FaceTime. I'm sure you've got a low-level executive that would get a kick out of meeting me. You know, so if 10 minutes, actually, 15 is a little much. 10 minutes? What do you say?
Rick Barnes, I took him out the first play of the second half because he didn't shoot the ball. That play is designed for him to shoot the ball. And I told him, if you're not going to do what you are getting paid to do and what I've told you to do, then you can just sit over here because you're getting paid to do what I tell you to do.
Yeah, man. That's some of the energy you might have felt in the previous segment about a certain pitcher, but you know, we don't know all those circumstances because hoops is a little different. That market is something else in terms of expense level. My God.
Oh, it's crazy expensive to get good players in college basketball, which means if I spend it, you're going to shoot the ball. I'm in the timeout designing the play for you, my highest paid player. You're the guy that I paid millions for to come here. You're going to shoot the ball, my man.
It's wild to me, too. Like, I get it. There are fewer players to go around. But if you're talking about return on investment, not talent level, because, you know, basketball players are just at this other level. Like, I get that part of it. But you're talking about TV ratings, the gate, jersey sales, return on investment. It would be like you could go to Islands of Adventure, Six Flags, like a real thrill park, not just a theme park, but a thrill park. And that's football in this analogy. And it's $100 to get in. Or you could go to the zoo and it's $1,100 to get into the zoo.
Or you could go to Wild Adventures.
Right.
It's gonna cost you $700,000.
It costs you $700,000 to go to Wild Adventures. It's like, I think I'd rather go to the thrill park, you know?
The thrill park is going to be great. Yeah.
Why do what I want to do? Why is that cheaper? I don't understand this.
Yeah, that's great. Jeff Cameron Show, Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
When the calendar turns from one year to the next, we all feel that jolt of energy, but we got to capture it. We got to move on it. You might be thinking to yourself in 2025, how am I going to make this year different? And how am I going to build something for myself? You might be dying to be your own boss. See if you can turn a business idea into a reality, one that you've been kicking around for a while. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen, and let me tell you how. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sale on the books. Get your store up and running easily with thousands of customizable templates. No coding or design skills are required on your part. All you need to do is drag and drop. And their powerful social media tools let you connect all of your channels and create shoppable posts to help you sell everywhere people scroll. Shopify makes it easy to manage growing your business. They help with the details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/warchant, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/warchant to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/warchant.
I need to say that, Tom, I think, listen, initially when it's something new, whatever it is, in the case of like modern football, you would say that the analytics, what gets done in a game or doesn't get done, and how the decisions are derived. We saw the revolution of this happen in baseball, in Moneyball, and all the other stuff that ended up happening. And after a while, things that we thought traditionally were done a certain way were not done that way any longer. And you kind of just got used to it and thought, okay. And somewhere along the way, people either weighed in on, I think we've gone too far, or we haven't gone far enough, or whatever it might be, right? I got to tell you, after Washington did it, and then last night after watching Kevin O'Connell do it very quickly, we got to stop all this going for it all the damn time. Stop it. Punt the ball, man. What are you doing? You just sealed your fate. So that fourth down that he goes for and doesn't get, and gives the ball back to the Rams in plus territory, which leads to a touchdown, and ball game, the second it happens, is dumb. And here's why it's dumb. At the time, you're down 17-3. It's a 2-score game. You get the ball to start the second half. Punt the ball. Go into half down 14, and let's go. You got a shot. But when you went for it and didn't get it and they scored, the game was over right then and there.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting talk, I'm sure, to come in that particular market because, Sam Darnold got found out, and that's its own discussion.
We'll get to it in a second.
But so has KOC, because he locks up like a certain senator at a press conference when you say, can you throw quick passes? Because you got to get the ball out of your quarterback's hand. All of these 15-yard depth double move throws, empty protections, like, sir,
yes,
a quick slant and a screen will do. And I know he called some more last night than he did against Detroit, but you could tell that LA was following the Lions' game plan. Just get the ball out of your dude's hand. What are we doing?
We talked about it last week after the Detroit game, and I said they should learn from that. And I'm not pretending to know as much as Kevin O'Connell, but I have an opinion on the matter. And my thought was after the game, well, you can't have Sam sitting there holding the ball forever. Your offensive line's not good enough. They heated you up. And then the next thing you knew, this poor guy was getting bludgeoned, and it got between his ears. Well, you know that going into that next week against the Rams, that they're very good, at quarterback pressures. Goodness gracious. We've seen the numbers here. They're going to come after him again. Get the ball out of his hand. We said it going in. So that's a first guess. And they didn't do it. And he got killed. He got sacked 9 times last night. He was, I had the number in front of me this morning, how many times he was hit. Good Lord. Sam is now onto your subject. It's got to be a tough day today. Because if you sit around thinking about the amount of money he just cost himself, first of all, I'm going to posit to you that he went from being franchise tagged, which would be worth in the neighborhood of $40+ million next year, as I understand it. I looked up the numbers. Had he been franchise tagged, with 42-ish, somewhere in there is what he would have been paid for next year. $42 million for Sam Darnold. That's what he would have made himself after this tremendous regular season in which he had completely revamped his reputation. including to the point of being carried off the field and jumped around in the locker room with and given the game ball after consecutive weeks of throwing for over 330 yards in each game that really mattered and made some really high-level throws, anticipatory throws that are difficult from an accuracy standpoint. He had totally flipped his reputation. And in 2 games, it's gone. And it's gone. It's all gone because, A, Minnesota's not going to franchise him. They're going to let him walk. They're going to begin the J.J. McCarthy era. They've got Daniel Jones behind J.J. McCarthy. If they want to start Daniel Jones for a couple of games next year, early in the season until J.J.'s ready, they can, so they will. And we'll move on from Mr. Darnold because that is crazy. That guy, just so you know the numbers, they had 14 wins. We all know that. 4,319 passing yards and 35 touchdowns. That's crazy. So he's carried in the locker room after they beat Green Bay, a huge celebration, all of it. So since that time, you saw him play like he did when he was with the Panthers and the Jets. That's what you've seen. And he had a combined, according to ESPN's research, 23 off-target throws. 23 in the last 2 games. He took 11 sacks in the last 2 games, obviously 9 last night. Now, those aren't all his fault, but many of them were him holding on to the ball for too long. There's 0 chance he's getting tagged. Well, I shouldn't say 0. It's highly unlikely he gets tagged. I think he's screwed.
No, there's no way that locker room. It's really sad in its own way.
Yes.
Like he'll make millions somewhere to continue his career, but it won't be 40 in Minnesota.
No.
It reminds me of watching Deal or No Deal when the person's not smart enough to do the math on just taking the offer, and it's open the case 12. And it's like, there goes the big number. You're like, oh my God, you had 160 grand. And the banker calls like, 50 grand. And they're like, let's do it again. Like, take the 50, you fool.
50, you dumbass, yes.
And they open up the case and it's the other big number. And the banker calls, he's like $12. And you're like, oh my God, you just walked away from 6 figures, you fool. Some of it's on KOC.
It is.
But most of it's on Darnold, and you're just watching somebody get the yips. It reminds me of Rick Ankiel, the pitcher version of his career, or Knobloch, who couldn't throw from second. He never recovered from the first half of the Detroit game last week. He looked like the exact same guy last night to start the game, and it's sad to watch. But for Minnesota fans, I know a specific one who was saying, hey, everybody, let's pump the brakes on spending this much money on Darnold. That's the silver lining today for that fan base as well. At least we ain't going to waste our money on that dude. We can spend that money somewhere else on improving the roster, maybe the O-line or a couple more defensive players.
It got me to thinking, and I know that normally it's an overreaction right after a game, Tom, but I was trying to think of a time that I've seen a team have the kind of season that Minnesota did with the kind of ending that Minnesota did. I mean, yes, we've seen teams that were favored or high profile, highly ranked in the world of college football, highly thought of in the world of the NFL, Super Bowl contending teams fall flat, lose a game. I remember the Atlanta Falcons, obviously, one year. We've seen Minnesota one year. I mean, Minnesota's done it more than once.
Yeah, that Giants game in the playoffs years ago. The Peyton Manning-led Indianapolis Colts did one year. Herm Edwards shut him out like 40-0.
Oh, they got blown out. Well, Peyton Manning began his career in the playoffs 0-3.
Yeah.
And then turned it all the way around, obviously, and won 2 Super Bowls. But it's funny because this is going to follow Kevin O'Connell for a while now. He's over in the playoffs, by the way, and it's a short-term thing. He's very, very good. They're very, very good. I think they're in a good place on the whole. But I would say that they have some unknowns now going to McCarthy next year. And it's not a good look to win 14 games and to crash and burn in the manner that they did over the last 2. You go from winning 14 games to losing in blowout fashion back-to-back, and your season is over?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
they're in a weird spot, too, because they're on offense, they're kind of veteran-laden and ready to make the push. So it's a weird moment to turn it over to a rookie, but you're certainly not going to turn it over to Darnold next year for $40 million. So
I think you begin the process. Look, he had a whole year to sit over there and see how fast the game is and to watch tape and to review and see what Darnold did right. So like if you're McCarthy, JJ's got a chance here to hit the ground running a little bit more than most because he did get a year to take it all in. Now, it's not the same as being in a game. It's not the same as dealing with when it's live, but it is, to me, beneficial for a guy to learn on the fly while he's sitting over there and rehabbing.
Well, who do you bring? Do you re-sign Daniel Jones?
Oh yeah,
but I mean, like, you need some insurance policy. Do you go grab a Flacco? Do you go grab Jameis?
No. Daniel Jones is that insurance policy. He beat Minnesota in the playoffs. Listen, Daniel Jones is a guy that they're going to pay $10 million. He wouldn't get that anywhere else, so he'll stay. And then you can start him if you want through 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks. And then you say, okay, we're turning it over to JJ McCarthy. Or, I mean, you can judge however you want to do it. He's good enough to win you a few games if you play good defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to go in there with McCarthy plus Daniel Jones, McCarthy plus a Flacco or a Jameis or something, just something that gives you an insurance policy.
Yeah, I just think you keep Daniel Jones. You pay him. Listen, he's a middling quarterback in the league. He's just not a franchise quarterback. So anybody you bring in is not a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
you're bringing in just to try to get you by. Say you're trying to get through 5 weeks at 3-2. Daniel Jones could do that.
I just wonder if this morning when Sam woke up, there was a text on his phone from a strange number, and he's like, "Is this spam?" And he opens it and it says, "Sam, this is Lee Westwood. Trust me, you'll get through it."
Well, Lee made himself millions, though, and Sam is going to be rich too. But
that's why it's kind of the same.
Yeah. Ooh, golly, 40+ million is what he would have had. Hey, really quickly, we only got a few minutes here left in the hour. I did want to bring up. Oh, it's now. It's now. Okay, we don't have time. All right, I'm going to shut up. Jeff Cameron Show / Seminole Headlines 93.3 Real Talk Radio Warchant TV.